The Convergence Academy floated in the serene embrace of the Altheon Nebula, a monument to everything the galactic community held dear. Order, reason, and the complete absence of anything that might bite your appendages off without warning. For 3,000 cycles, it had served as the premier educational institution for the offspring of the galaxy's most refined species. The Veltraxians sent their crystalline youth to learn quantum mathematics. The Forvians dispatched their floating scholars to master temporal philosophy. Even the notoriously proud Kethril allowed their best and brightest to mingle with other civilizations, which was saying something considering they believed themselves to be the universe's gift to bureaucracy. The Academy's silver spires stretched across an artificial continent, each building a masterpiece of architectural excess that screamed, "We have more credits than sense, but make it educational." Gardens of bioluminescent flora lined pathways where students from 40 different worlds walked, slithered, floated, or quantum tunneled to their classes. The air hummed with the sound of a dozen languages, all translated in real time by neural implants that cost more than most planetary defense systems. Everything was perfect. Everything was controlled. Everything was safe. Then humanity filed their application for the cultural exchange program, and somewhere in the administrative offices, a bureaucrat probably had what humans would call a very bad day. Earth, as it turned out, was what the Galactic Survey Corps classified as a Class 12 death world. To put that in perspective, Class 1 worlds were considered mildly hazardous, the kind of place where you might get a sunburn or accidentally eat something that disagreed with your digestive tract. Class 12 worlds were the kind of place where the survey teams drew straws to see who had to write the report. And the loser usually requested hazard pay that could fund a small moon colony. The planet rotated around a star that periodically bombarded it with radiation. Its atmosphere was 21% oxygen, a concentration that would make most species lightheaded before spontaneously combusting. The gravity was absurd. The tectonic plates had anger management issues, and the weather seemed to operate on the principle of creative sadism. Frozen water fell from the sky. The air itself could spin into tunnels of destruction, and every few million years, a rock from space showed up to ruin everyone's afternoon. But the real problem was not the planet itself. It was what lived on it. Earth's evolutionary history read like a horror novel written by a committee of mad scientists. Everything ate everything else with enthusiastic dedication. The plants were toxic. The insects carried diseases. The mammals had teeth designed by someone who really understood the concept of overkill. And the apex predators were bipedal nightmares that had somehow decided cooperation was a better survival strategy than killing each other, which meant they pooled their terrifying capabilities into something called civilization. When the Galactic Council reviewed Earth's application, the debate lasted 3 standard weeks. One side argued that humanity's recent achievement of faster-than-light travel meant they qualified for admission under the Sentient Species Integration Act of 2847. The other side pointed out that letting Deathworld predators into an educational institution was roughly equivalent to releasing a Xantharian blood wasp into a nursery and hoping for the best. The compromise, as compromises often are, was stupid but legally binding. Humanity could send one student, as a trial run. If the human could complete a full academic cycle without causing a diplomatic incident, eating anyone, or accidentally traumatizing the student body, then Earth would be granted full membership status. The Council congratulated themselves on their progressive thinking and fair-mindedness. Several members went home feeling very good about their tolerance and open-mindedness. None of them bothered to ask what kind of human Earth would send. Advanced xenobiology was taught in Lecture Hall 7, a circular room with tiered seating that curved around a central platform. Professor Xyloth, a Veltraxian whose crystalline structure reflected light in patterns that indicated either deep thought or profound irritation, stood at the podium reviewing his notes. Around him, 30 students settled into their seats with varying degrees of excitement and anxiety. Renique, a young Kethril whose purple carapace gleamed under the hall's lighting, adjusted his translation implant for the 4th time. His species prided themselves on being unflappable, but even he had to admit that today's class had him thoroughly flapped. Next to him, Tessa, a Forvian who resembled nothing so much as a floating jellyfish made of golden light, pulsed nervously. Are we really doing this? Tessa transmitted directly into Renique's mind, her species' preferred method of communication. Are we really about to share a classroom with a human? Renique's mandibles clicked in what might have been a shrug. The council approved it. What could possibly go wrong? From the row behind them, a Dravian named Kellis leaned forward. His species resembled bipedal lizards, which meant he at least looked vaguely predatory by galactic standards. Everything, he hissed. Everything could go wrong. Do you know what I read about humans? They evolved by chasing their prey until it died of exhaustion. They can survive without water for days. Their bones are reinforced with calcium, and when those bones break, they just heal themselves. They have a poison tolerance that makes no evolutionary sense. And their bite force, do not get me started on their bite force. That is hardly scientific, Tessa pulsed, though her light dimmed slightly. You are catastrophizing. Am I? Kellis produced a data pad. I downloaded the entire Terran biology database. Did you know they have something called adrenaline that lets them ignore pain and perform feats of strength that should be physiologically impossible? They are literally built with their own combat enhancement drugs. The conversation died as Professor Xyloth's crystalline face rotated toward the class. His internal structures shifted through colors, settling on a calm blue that indicated he was about to say something he believed was important. Students, his voice resonated through the hall's speakers, translated into each species' native format. Today marks a historic occasion. As you are no doubt aware, we will be joined by a human student as part of the Cultural Exchange Initiative. I expect you all to demonstrate the courtesy and respect that are hallmarks of a Convergence Academy education. Renique noticed that the professor's color had shifted slightly toward green. Stress, if he remembered his Veltraxian color theory correctly. I must remind you, Xyloth continued, that humans, despite their origin on what some consider an inhospitable world, are sapient beings deserving of the same dignity we extend to all species. Any form of discrimination or prejudice will not be tolerated. A brave speech, Renique thought. Very progressive, very enlightened. Also, Xyloth added, his color shifting more noticeably toward green. The medical bay has been placed on standby. Security has been briefed, and I have a direct link to the station's emergency response team. Just as a precaution, you understand. So much for enlightened. Tessa pulsed privately to Renique. The door hissed open, every sensory organ in the room oriented toward the entrance. Renique's antennae quivered, Tessa's luminescence flickered, Kellis's tail went rigid. Even Professor Xyloth's crystalline structure seemed to freeze mid-rotation. The human walked in. She was small. That was the first thing everyone noticed. Whatever image they had constructed in their minds of a towering apex predator, this was not it. She stood perhaps 1.6 meters tall, with a slight build that suggested she might blow away in a strong wind. Her skin was a light brown, and her dark hair was pulled back in what would later be explained as a ponytail. She wore the standard academy uniform, a simple gray and blue affair that somehow looked more casual on her than it did on anyone else. She carried a bag over one shoulder, moved with an easy gait that suggested complete comfort in the academy's gravity, and her face held an expression that could only be described as mildly curious. "Hey," she said, raising one hand in a gesture that was apparently a human greeting. "Sorry, I'm a bit late. The transport system is confusing. I ended up in the agricultural wing somehow. Did you know there are plants from Hexar 7 growing there? The ones with the paralytic spores. Wild." She walked down the aisle toward an empty seat, seemingly oblivious to the 30 pairs of eyes tracking her every movement. Rennick's first coherent thought was that there had been a mistake. This could not be right. This was clearly not the apex predator from a Class 12 Deathworld. This was obviously some kind of administrative error. Perhaps they had sent the offspring of a different species, one of the tamer ones that humans kept as companions. He had read they did that, kept other species in their dwellings for emotional support. Very strange, but apparently common. The human dropped her bag next to a desk and sat down with absolutely no regard for the tactical considerations of positioning. She did not scan for exits. She did not position herself with a view of the entrances. She just sat, pulled out a data pad from her bag, and looked up at Professor Xyloth with an expression of polite attention. "Thank you for joining us," Xyloth managed, his color now firmly in the amber range of deeply uncertain. "Perhaps you would like to introduce yourself to the class?" The human smiled. "Oh, sure. I am from Earth, obviously. This is my first time off planet, which is incredibly exciting. I am really interested in xenobiology, so I am super pumped for this class. Back home, I was part of the ecology club, so learning about how life develops on other worlds is like my dream. I hope we can all be friends." She smiled again, showing her teeth. Several students flinched. Those teeth were flat, mostly flat, the kind of teeth that suggested an omnivorous diet. But the canines, small as they were, held a shape that every prey species in the galaxy recognized on an instinctual level. Those were cutting teeth, tearing teeth. Rennick felt his carapace tighten. Beside him, Tessa's light had dimmed to barely a flicker. The human, apparently oblivious to the existential dread she had just inspired, pulled out what looked like a compressed nutrition bar from her bag and took a bite. "Wonderful," Professor Xyloth said, his color now cycling through shades that had no official meaning in Veltraxian communication theory. "Let us begin today's lesson. We will be discussing evolutionary adaptations in extreme environments." The irony was not lost on anyone. The lecture proceeded with the kind of strained normalcy that happens when everyone is pretending everything is fine while simultaneously preparing for disaster. Professor Xyloth discussed the various ways species adapted to their environments, carefully avoiding any direct references to Deathworlds, predation, or anything that might be considered a sensitive topic. The human, whose name they learned was Maya, took notes. She asked questions that seemed genuine and thoughtful. She did not bare her fangs or make threatening gestures. She did not discuss hunting strategies or demonstrate her species' famous endurance capabilities. She was, by all appearances, just a student. This, somehow, made everything worse. Rennick had done his research. He knew what humans were capable of, the casual violence of their history, the wars they fought among themselves, with weapons that could level cities, the way they had conquered their entire planet through sheer stubborn persistence, and the kind of intelligence that made other predators look like they were barely trying. But this human just sat there, chewing on her nutrition bar, occasionally brushing hair from her face, looking for all the world like she belonged in a classroom rather than at the top of a food chain. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. Can anyone, Professor Zyloth was saying, explain the relationship between environmental pressure and evolutionary response? Maya's hand went up. Oh, I can give an example from Earth. So, where I am from, we have these things called polar bears. They are these massive predators that live in frozen regions. They evolved white fur for camouflage, thick blubber for insulation, and these huge paws that distribute their weight so they can walk on ice. They are also strong enough to kill a seal with one hit. And they are one of the few species on Earth that actively hunts humans. The silence that followed could have been weaponized. She said it so casually, like she was discussing the weather rather than describing a creature that considered her species prey. Fascinating, Professor Zyloth managed. And these, polar bears. They are contained in specific regions, yes? Maya nodded. Oh yeah, mostly the Arctic. Though with climate change, they have been moving into new areas. Sometimes they wander into towns. We have protocols for that. Protocols. Tessa pulsed weakly. You have protocols for when apex predators wander into your population centers. Well, yeah, Maya said, looking confused. I mean, you cannot just let them roam around. Someone might get hurt. Usually animal control tranquilizes them and relocates them somewhere safer. Rennick's translator struggled with the concept of humans having a casual infrastructure for dealing with creatures that hunted them. His mandibles clicked involuntarily. And this is normal, he said slowly. On your world. Maya shrugged. I mean, it depends where you live. Polar bears are mostly a problem in the north. Where I grew up, we had different issues. Mountain lions mostly, and sometimes bears, but not polar bears. Regular bears, Kellis repeated, his tail now coiled tightly around his seat, as opposed to irregular bears. Maya laughed. That is a good way to put it. Yeah, we have like 8 species of bears. They are mostly fine if you leave them alone. Though you have to be careful with grizzlies during salmon season. They get territorial. Professor Zyloth's color had progressed beyond green into shades that probably indicated he was reconsidering his career choices. Perhaps we should move on to discuss adaptation in aquatic environments. Oh, that is great, Maya said enthusiastically. Earth's oceans are super interesting. We have not even explored most of them because they are so deep and the pressure would crush our submarines. There are probably tons of species we have not even discovered yet. Though we know about some of the cool ones, like giant squids and the anglerfish and the box jellyfish. The box jellyfish, Rennick said carefully. Why is that notable? Oh, because they are super deadly. Their venom can kill a human in minutes. We have them near some of our beaches. You have to be really careful swimming during certain seasons. Your recreational swimming areas, Tessa pulsed, have deadly venomous creatures. Maya nodded. Yeah, but it is fine. We have vinegar stations on the beaches. Vinegar helps with the stings. Vinegar, Professor Zyloth said. Stations. It is just acetic acid, Maya explained helpfully. Pretty common household item. We use it for cooking too. The class had progressed beyond horror into a kind of numb acceptance that everything about Earth was a waking nightmare disguised as a normal planet. The breaking point came during the practical portion of the lesson. Professor Zyloth, perhaps thinking that a hands-on demonstration would calm everyone's nerves, produced a sealed container holding samples from various worlds. The idea was for students to examine the specimens and discuss their evolutionary advantages. The first sample was a plant from Verdus 4, a gentle world where evolution had favored cooperation and symbiosis. The plant was beautiful, with delicate fronds that swayed as if in an invisible breeze. Pretty, Maya said, leaning close to examine it. Kind of reminds me of a fern. We have those all over Earth, though ours release spores that some people are allergic to. Of course they do, Kellis muttered. The second sample was a small arthropod from Kellis's homeworld, a creature about the size of a human thumb with an iridescent carapace. Oh, wow, Maya said. That is so cool. It looks like a beetle. Can I hold it? Before anyone could stop her, she had opened the container and scooped the creature into her palm. It skittered across her skin, and she laughed. It tickles. Rennick stared. The creature was harmless by most standards. But the casual way she handled an alien life form, with no hesitation or fear, spoke to something fundamentally different about human psychology. We have so many beetles on Earth, Maya continued, watching the arthropod explore her hand, like hundreds of thousands of species. Some of them are huge. There is one called the Titan beetle that is like 6 inches long. And then there are these ones that shoot boiling acid as a defense mechanism. Boiling acid? Professor Xyloth repeated weakly. Yeah, bombardier beetles. They are so cool. They mix chemicals in their abdomen and spray it at attackers. It is hot enough to burn skin. And you coexist with these creatures? Tessa pulsed. I mean, they are not that common in urban areas, Maya said. You mostly find them in the wild. Which, is where most of the really dangerous stuff is. The cities are pretty safe. Pretty safe, Rennick echoed, as opposed to completely safe. Maya's expression suggested she was trying to figure out how to explain something obvious. Well, there is always some risk. Weather events, traffic accidents, structural failures. But those are just normal things you deal with. We have building codes and safety regulations and stuff. The casual acceptance of danger as a normal part of existence was perhaps the most terrifying thing they had learned about humans yet. Professor Xyloth, clearly deciding that the lesson had gone far enough off the rails, dismissed the class early. Students filed out with varying degrees of haste, most giving Maya a wide berth. Rennick, however, found his curiosity overcoming his instinctive wariness. He approached as Maya packed her bag. I have a question, he said carefully, if I may. Maya looked up and smiled, that same smile that showed those small, efficient teeth. Sure, what is up? Your world, Rennick began, trying to find words that would not sound insulting. It sounds extremely dangerous. Yet you speak of it with, fondness. Maya's expression softened into something that looked like homesickness. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, Earth can be dangerous if you are careless. But it is also beautiful. We have mountains that touch the sky, and oceans that stretch forever, and forests so thick you can get lost in them. We have seasons that change the entire landscape. We have animals that are, okay, yes, dangerous, but also amazing to watch. And we have people, billions of us, all living our lives and building things and making art and just existing together. She paused, then added, I guess we are used to the danger. It is just part of life. You learn the rules, you take precautions, and mostly you are fine. And the alternative would be never going outside, never exploring, never experiencing anything. That seems worse than the risk. Rennick processed this. His species had achieved civilization by avoiding risk, by building controlled environments, by eliminating variables. Humans had apparently achieved it by running headfirst into danger and just dealing with the consequences. You are very strange, he said finally. Maya laughed. Yeah, I am getting that a lot here. But hey, strange is interesting, right? She shouldered her bag and headed for the door, then paused and looked back. Hey, a bunch of us are meeting in the common area later if you want to hang out. I brought some human snacks to share. Nothing dangerous, I promise. After she left, Rennick stood alone in the lecture hall, trying to reconcile everything he had learned. The human was not what he expected. She was not a towering predator with visible weapons and aggressive posturing. She was small and friendly, and apparently thought that planets where the wildlife actively tried to kill you were beautiful. Tessa floated up beside him. "Are you going to the common area later?" she pulsed. Rennick's antennae twitched. "I think I might." "You?" "I am terrified," Tessa admitted, "but also curious. Is that normal?" "Given what we just learned about humans," Rennick said, "I think curiosity in the face of terror might be a survival trait." The common area of Convergence Academy was designed for interspecies mingling, a large open space with various environmental zones to accommodate different physiologies. There were water features for aquatic species, heated platforms for cold-blooded students, and cushioned areas for species that preferred to lounge rather than sit. Maya had claimed a neutral zone in the center and was unpacking her bag when Rennick and Tessa arrived. Several other students had gathered, though whether from curiosity or the social equivalent of watching a disaster unfold was unclear. "Okay," Maya said cheerfully, producing several wrapped items. "So I brought some stuff from Earth. These are chocolate bars. This is trail mix, which is nuts and dried fruit. And these are these chips, which are basically sliced and fried potatoes with salt." Kelly's, who had also decided to attend, eyed the offering suspiciously. "These are safe for consumption by non-humans." "Oh, probably." Maya looked uncertain. "I mean, the chocolate might be an issue. I read that it is toxic to some species. But the trail mix should be fine. Nuts and fruit are pretty universal, right?" The fact that she had brought potentially toxic substances and seemed genuinely surprised that this might be a problem was very on brand for humans, Rennick decided. "I will try the trail mix," he said, figuring that if he was going to die from alien food poisoning, at least it would make for an interesting obituary. Maya handed him a small portion. The nuts were crunchy, the fruit was sweet, and nothing immediately tried to kill him. He considered this a victory. So, a Hexarian student whose name translated roughly to Cascade of Light said, "What is Earth like? Beyond the parts that are trying to kill you?" Maya's eyes lit up. "Oh man, where do I even start?" "Okay, so Earth is really diverse. We have 7 continents, which are like huge land masses, and they all have different climates and ecosystems. The continent I am from has everything from deserts to forests to mountains to beaches. And each one has its own wildlife and plants and weather patterns." She pulled out her data pad and started showing images. Rennick had to admit, the planet was visually stunning. Vast blue oceans, green forests, mountains capped with white snow, deserts that glowed gold under sunlight. "This is a rainforest," Maya said, showing an image of towering trees draped in vines. "These are some of the most biodiverse places on Earth. Thousands of species living in one area. Though you have to be careful because there are also jaguars and poisonous frogs and snakes and insects that can, lots of things that can hurt you. But it is worth it for the beauty. And people live near these places," Tessa pulsed. "Some people live in them," Maya corrected. "Indigenous communities have been living in rainforests for thousands of years. They know how to coexist with the environment." The concept of coexisting with an environment that actively hostile was still difficult for most of the students to grasp. "What about your cities?" Cascade asked. "Are those safer?" Maya made a so-so gesture with her hand. "Mostly. I mean, we have different problems in cities. Pollution, crime, traffic. But we also have hospitals and emergency services and buildings designed to withstand earthquakes and storms. Humans are really good at adapting our environments to make them safer. Earthquakes, Kelly said. Your planet's tectonic activity threatens your population centers. Oh yeah, Maya said casually. I mean, not everywhere. But places near fault lines have to deal with it. We have building codes for earthquake zones. The buildings are designed to flex rather than break. Your buildings flex? Rennick said slowly. Well, yeah. Rigid structures just collapse. You need some give in the system. It is basic engineering. The idea that humans had developed architecture based on the assumption that the ground beneath them would regularly try to shake them to death was another data point in the growing pile of evidence that Earth was a nightmare planet. Can I ask something? A small Forvian named Drift pulsed. Why do humans choose to live in dangerous areas? Could you not simply inhabit the safer regions of your planet? Maya considered this. I guess we could. But then we would miss out on a lot. Some of the most beautiful and resource-rich areas are also dangerous. And I think... She paused, searching for words. I think humans are just wired to explore and push boundaries. We get bored with safe. We want to see what is beyond the next mountain, or across the ocean, or in the deepest jungle, even if it is risky. This statement hung in the air, and Rennick realized it explained quite a bit about humanity. They had achieved space travel, not because they had made their world safe, but because their world was dangerous, and they wanted to see what else was out there. They were not running from risk. They were running toward the next challenge. It was insane. It was also kind of admirable. The conversation continued, flowing from topic to topic. Maya showed them images of human cities, sprawling metropolises with towers of glass and steel. She showed them natural wonders, waterfalls and canyons, and coral reefs. She showed them human art and architecture and told stories about history and culture. And gradually, the fear began to ebb. Not because Maya was any less from a Deathworld, or any less of a predator species, but because the students began to see her as something more than a collection of terrifying traits. She was curious and enthusiastic, and had terrible taste in what she considered safe. But she was also kind and patient, and genuinely interested in learning about their worlds. As the gathering wound down and students began departing, Rennick found himself thinking that perhaps the council had been right to approve the exchange program. Not because humans were not dangerous, they absolutely were, but because understanding that danger was better than fearing it from a distance. Maya was packing up her snacks when he approached. "Thank you for sharing," he said. "Your world it is quite something." Maya grinned. "Yeah. Earth is pretty special. Terrifying, apparently, but special." She paused, then added, "You know, I was really nervous about coming here. Being the only human, representing my whole species. I was worried everyone would hate me or be scared of me or think I was some kind of monster. But you are not," Rennick said. "A monster, I mean." Maya's smile turned a bit sad. "We are predators, though. That is not wrong. Humans have done terrible things to each other and to our world. We have violence in our history and our nature. But we also have compassion and creativity and the ability to choose to be better than our worst instincts. I hope that is what people see, eventually." It was, Rennick reflected, a very human thing to say. Acknowledging the darkness while choosing to focus on the light. "I think we will," he said. "See that, I mean. Given time." Maya's expression brightened. "Good, because I brought like 3 more bags of snacks, and I need people to help me eat them. Later, As Rennick made his way back to his quarters, he passed Professor Zaloth in the hallway. The Veltraxian's crystalline structure had finally returned to a normal blue. "So," Zaloth said, "first day with our human student. How did it go?" Rennick considered the question. She is terrifying and friendly and completely oblivious to how terrifying she is. Her world sounds like it was designed by a sadistic deity. And I think I might actually like her. Professor Zyloth's colors shifted through several hues before settling on something that might have been amusement. Yes, that sounds about right. The Council's report noted that humans have a peculiar ability to make the horrifying seem mundane. Apparently, it is one of their survival traits. Surviving by normalizing danger, Rennick mused. What a strange species. Indeed, Zyloth agreed, though I suspect we will all become accustomed to their strangeness. The Council has already approved 5 more human students for next cycle. Rennick's antennae perked up. 5 more. Zyloth's color deepened. I have already requested a raise. As Rennick continued to his quarters, he thought about Maya and her casual discussions of killer jellyfish and boiling beetles and planets where the very ground beneath your feet might decide to rearrange itself without warning. He thought about her enthusiasm and her homesickness and her complete lack of awareness that everything she described sounded like a horror story to literally everyone else. Humans, he decided, were going to change the galaxy. Not through conquest or violence, though they were certainly capable of both, but through their sheer inability to comprehend that other species found them utterly terrifying. They would wander into the galactic community with their Deathworld casual attitudes, and their predator optimism, and their baffling assumption that everything would probably work out fine. And the truly scary part? They would probably be right. Back in her own quarters, Maya sat on her bed and composed a message to her family back on Earth. The day had gone well, she thought. The other students had seemed nervous at first, but they had warmed up eventually. She was making friends. The academy was amazing. Everything was going exactly as she had hoped. She attached a photo of herself in the common area, surrounded by alien students of various shapes and sizes, all of them looking slightly uncomfortable while she beamed at the camera. Made some friends today, she typed. They think Earth is scary, which is kind of funny. But I think they are starting to get that we are not that bad. Tomorrow we have xenobiology lab. Professor says we are going to study adaptive immune systems. I am so excited I could die. She sent the message, changed into her sleep clothes, and settled in for the night. Through her window, the Altheon Nebula painted the darkness in shades of purple and gold. It was beautiful, alien, nothing like the night sky she had grown up watching. She missed Earth with a sudden fierce ache. Missed the smell of rain, the sound of birds, the feeling of grass under bare feet. Missed the comfortable danger of a world that had shaped humanity into what they were. But she was exactly where she wanted to be, doing exactly what she had dreamed of doing. Learning, exploring, pushing beyond the boundaries of what she knew. It was, she thought drowsily, as sleep claimed her. Going to be an interesting year. Back in the common area, long after everyone had left, a cleaning bot whirred into the space to tidy up. It scanned the room, noting the unusual debris, chocolate wrappers and nutshells, evidence of human presence in a galaxy that was only just beginning to understand what that meant. The galaxy had spent millennia building its careful civilization, creating safe spaces and controlled environments. Then humanity had shown up, and if today was any indication, absolutely nothing would ever be safe or controlled again. Somewhere in the administrative offices, someone was probably having what humans would call a very bad day. The rest of the galaxy was just going to have to get used to it.